The battlefield was silent. Smoke still rose from broken ships and burning metal. The war had ended here, but only in death and ruin. A single human walked through the wreckage, his boots crunching on shattered glass and stone. His name was Captain Daniel, but now he was just another survivor. His uniform was torn, his face tired, and his stomach empty. For days he had found nothing to eat, nothing to drink. Daniel stopped near the broken wall of an old colony building. He leaned against it, breathing heavily. His body begged for rest, but his mind kept whispering, "Keep moving or you die." He checked his bag. Inside was one food pack, the very last meal he had. He stared at it for a long time. If he ate it now, maybe he would survive one more day. But only one. After that, there was nothing. The silence was heavy, almost painful. Then suddenly a small sound cut through it, a voice, soft, weak, almost like a child. "I'm hungry." Daniel froze. He thought his mind was playing tricks on him. Maybe hunger had broken his thoughts. But then he heard it again, clearer this time. "I'm hungry." Slowly, carefully, he turned. Behind a pile of rubble, something moved. At first he thought it was a child, maybe one of the colonists who had survived. But as the figure stepped into the dim light, Daniel's eyes widened. It was not human. She was small, no taller than his knee. Her skin was pale silver, almost glowing in the darkness. Her eyes were big and bright like two small moons. Her hair floated around her head as if touched by unseen wind. She looked fragile, thinner than a bird. Daniel's hand moved to his weapon on instinct. For months, humans had fought against alien races. He did not know if this creature was friend or enemy. But then he saw her face. There was no hate, no anger, only hunger, only fear. She looked at him, then at the small food pack hanging from his belt. "I'm hungry," she whispered again. Daniel's throat went dry. This was madness. He had one meal left. One. If he gave it away, he would have nothing. But how could he ignore her? She was so small, so weak. He could almost see her bones under her skin. He took a slow step forward, his boots echoing in the empty ruins. The little alien did not run. She only watched him, her glowing eyes wide with hope and fear. Daniel knelt down. His body felt heavy, but his heart felt even heavier. He took out the food pack, holding it in his hand. "This is all I have," he whispered, though he knew she might not understand his words. But she seemed to understand. Her eyes locked on the pack, and for the first time, a tiny spark of life returned to her expression. Daniel tore open the seal and placed the pack on the ground in front of her. For a moment, the little alien did not move. Then carefully, she crawled closer. She picked up the pack with shaking hands and began to eat. Slowly at first, as if she was afraid it would vanish, then faster as her hunger took over. Daniel just watched. His stomach twisted with pain, but he did not regret it. Something inside him felt warm for the first time in many weeks. He had seen too much death, too much hate. But here, in the ruins of war, he had chosen kindness. The girl finished eating and looked up at him. Crumbs stuck to her lips, but her glowing eyes were softer now. She tilted her head and spoke in a small, shaky voice. Why human give food?" Daniel blinked. She spoke his language, broken but clear enough. "Because you needed it more than me," he answered quietly. The alien girl stared at him for a long moment, as if trying to understand something much bigger than the food she had eaten. Then slowly she gave a tiny smile. That smile hit Daniel harder than any weapon. He had no idea who she was or why she was here. But in that moment he felt he was no longer alone. The silence returned, but it felt different now. Softer. Warmer. Daniel looked around the ruins, then back at the girl. Something told him this was only the beginning. And in the distance, deep in the shadows, unseen eyes were already watching them both. The encounter had not gone unnoticed. The little alien girl finished the last bite of food, licking her fingers like a child who had not eaten in days. Her glowing eyes softened, but Daniel's stomach twisted harder. He felt the emptiness in his own body now, his head light, his lips dry. That food had been his last hope. Yet strangely, he did not feel regret. He sat down on a broken piece of stone. The ruins around them were quiet, only the distant crackle of fire breaking the silence. The girl tilted her head, studying him. "You hungry too?" she said in her broken human tongue. Daniel forced a small smile. "I'll be fine." But they both knew it was a lie. For a long time neither spoke. The smoke curled in the sky like dark ghosts, and the stars above peeked through broken clouds. Daniel's body begged for rest, but his eyes stayed on the girl. She looked so fragile, like she might vanish if the wind grew strong. Finally, she asked, "Why human give food? When human need too?" Daniel looked at her, his eyes tired but steady. "Because it was the right thing to do," the girl blinked. "Right?" "Yes," he said, his voice firm even though his body was weak. "Sometimes it doesn't matter if you live one more day. What matters is what kind of person you are while you live." The word surprised even him. For months he had been nothing but a soldier, a machine of survival. But now looking at her, he remembered he was still human. The alien girl slowly crawled closer. She sat near him, hugging her tiny knees. "No human ever give food to me, only hurt. Only take." Her voice trembled as if each word carried heavy memories. Daniel's jaw tightened. He thought of the war, of orders shouted by commanders, of civilians caught in fire. Maybe the humans she had met before had been enemies, not saviors. He wanted to explain, to defend his people, but he stayed silent. Because she was right. The war had made monsters on both sides. She looked up at him with eyes like shining moons. "You different." Daniel felt a strange warmth. A small creature from a race he did not know. Trusted him, and that trust felt heavier than his weapon, heavier than his own hunger. But before he could speak, the ground shook, a low rumble, a sound that sent cold fear through his veins. Engines. Daniel's instincts screamed. He grabbed his rifle and crouched low. The alien girl's glowing eyes widened, and she pressed close to him like a frightened child. From above, bright light swept across the ruins. Enemy patrol ships. Their metal wings cut through the smoke, searching for survivors. The sound of scanners echoed, sharp beeps, scanning every shadow, every broken wall. Daniel pulled the girl under a collapsed roof, covering her small body with his arm. His heart raced. One wrong move, one sound, and they would both be found. The girl clutched his torn sleeve. "They... bad," she whispered. Daniel nodded, his lips pressed tight. He knew exactly who they were. Enemy hunters, no mercy. If they found her, she would be captured. If they found him, he would be executed. The lights moved closer, sweeping across broken stone and twisted steel. Daniel's breath slowed. He had hidden from patrols before, but never while protecting someone else. The girl trembled. Her small hands shook. But then her eyes closed, and she whispered something in a language Daniel did not know. Suddenly the patrol light shifted as if the scanners were pulled away. The ships moved past, their engines fading into the distance. Daniel blinked, stunned. "Did she do that?" The girl opened her eyes again, her body weak, as if the effort had drained her. She leaned against him, safe. For now. He stared at her, realizing she was far more than she seemed. A tiny alien child, yes, but one with power. Power that even the enemy feared. He whispered, "Who are you really?" She looked up at him, her small voice soft. Last. Last of my kind." The word sank heavy into his chest. Last of her kind. Alone in the universe, just like him now. Daniel knew then that his choice had already been made. He had given her his food, his strength, his protection, and now he would give her something more. He reached out, gently touching her small shoulder. "Then I'll make sure you're not the last to die." "Not while I'm here." The girl's eyes widened. She searched his face as if looking for lies, but found none. For the first time, her small lips curved into a real smile. The ruins were still dangerous, the war far from over. Daniel's hunger still gnawed at him. But the choice had been made. He would protect her no matter the cost, because in this broken world, in all the hate and fire, he had found one thing worth saving. And somewhere, deep inside, he felt the war was about to change. The ruins grew darker as night pulled its heavy cloak across the broken colony. Daniel and the little alien girl sat in silence, hidden beneath the shattered roof. His stomach ached with hunger, but his mind was sharp, alert. The girl had saved them. Somehow she had bent the scanners away. But Daniel knew luck never lasted long in war. The enemy would come again. The girl's glowing eyes flickered as she leaned against him, exhausted. Her small voice trembled. "They will not stop. They always come back." Daniel looked into the distance where faint lights moved across the night sky like predators searching for prey. His hand tightened around his rifle. "Then we keep moving." He helped her to her feet. She was light as a feather, almost weightless. Together they slipped through the ruins, moving from shadow to shadow. The air smelled of smoke and rust. Every broken wall felt like a tombstone. For a while, the only sounds were their footsteps and the whisper of wind through collapsed buildings. But then a sharp metallic roar split the night. Engines, again, this time closer. Daniel cursed under his breath. A squad of patrol drones descended, their red lights scanning the ruins like hungry eyes. Their mechanical voices echoed. Searching, searching. Human life signs detected. The girl gripped his arm tightly. "They know," she whispered. Daniel pulled her behind a fallen tower. "Stay quiet," but the drones were fast, too fast. One of them swooped low, its red scanner light flashing across the ground. Daniel pressed the girl against the wall, shielding her small frame with his own body. The red light swept past his boots and stopped. The drone beeped. Life form detected. Daniel didn't think. He raised his rifle and fired. The shot cracked through the night, smashing into the drone. Sparks flew as the machine spiraled down, crashing into rubble. The silence broke. The other drones swarmed instantly, their red eyes locking on his position. "Run!" Daniel shouted, grabbing the girl's hand. They sprinted through the ruins as laser fire cut the air behind them. Stones shattered, metal sparked. The ground shook with explosions. The girl's small legs moved fast, but Daniel half-dragged her, keeping her close. His breath came hard, but he didn't stop. They darted through a broken hallway, climbed over debris, and stumbled into an old street lined with destroyed shops. Neon signs flickered weakly, dying lights from a world long gone. But the drones did not give up. Their red lights grew closer. The girl cried out, "This way!" She pulled Daniel toward a narrow passage hidden behind a collapsed wall. He hesitated for a split second. Could he trust her? But he had no choice. He followed. The passage was tight, barely wide enough for him to fit. They crawled through the darkness, the sound of drones buzzing behind them. Dust filled his mouth and nose. The girl moved like she knew the path, her glowing eyes lighting the way. At last, they spilled out into a vast underground chamber. Daniel looked around in shock. It was a forgotten subway tunnel, half buried in rubble. Broken trains lay like skeletons in the dark, but the air was cooler here, safer. The girl whispered, "They cannot find us here." Too deep. Daniel lowered his rifle, chest heaving. Sweat ran down his face. "How do you know this place?" She touched the wall gently, almost like greeting an old friend. "My people were slaves. We hid in tunnels." "I remember." Daniel's eyes narrowed. This tiny creature carried memories of survival far older than her small body suggested. She had knowledge, paths, secrets. Without her, he would already be dead. But their safety lasted only a moment. Above them, the heavy thud of boots echoed. Human voices this time. Soldiers. Enemy infantry. Daniel froze. If drones were machines of death, soldiers were worse. Ruthless, precise. They would search every corner, every shadow. The girl's eyes glowed brighter. "They follow. We must move now." Daniel checked his rifle. Only a few shots left. His body screamed for rest, but his will hardened. He had chosen to protect her, and he would. They ran again, deeper into the tunnel. Rats scattered in the darkness, old water dripped from pipes. Daniel's boots splashed in puddles as he carried the girl over broken rails. Then came the sound that chilled his blood. The enemy shouting orders. "Fan out. Don't let them escape." Daniel's heart pounded. He lifted the girl and pressed her against his chest. His whisper was sharp. "Hold on." Bullets tore into the walls behind them, sparks flying. The tunnel roared with fire and echoes. Daniel zigzagged through shadows, his rifle barking back with each shot. 2 soldiers dropped, but more came. Always more. The girl hid her face against his chest, but her small hands glowed faintly, pulsing with strange light. And then, for the second time, Daniel felt it. The air shifted. The tunnel seemed to bend. The soldiers slowed, their movements clumsy, as if their senses were twisted. Bullets missed. Lights flickered. Daniel stared down at the girl. "You're doing this, aren't you?" Her eyes opened, shining like stars. "I protect." Her voice was weak, almost fading, but her power was real, enough to buy them precious seconds. Daniel pushed forward deeper into the tunnel until the gunfire faded. Until there was only the sound of his own heartbeat and the girl's faint breathing. He stopped at last, lowering her gently onto the floor of an old train car. She was pale, her glow dim. "You saved us," he whispered. The girl's lips curved into a tired smile. "You saved me first." Daniel sat beside her, rifle across his knees, eyes on the shadows. He knew the enemy would not give up. The chase had only begun, but he also knew something else now. This girl was not just a helpless child. She was something far greater. And if the enemy wanted her this badly, then she was the key to something much bigger than survival. The tunnel was quiet again. Only the drip of old water and the distant groan of broken pipes filled the silence. Daniel sat inside the rusted train car, his back against cold metal. His rifle rested across his knees, but his eyes were not on the weapon. They were on her, the little alien girl. She lay curled on the floor, her chest rising and falling slowly, glowing faintly in the dark. The strange light from her body flickered like a candle fighting against wind. Daniel could see she was weak. Whatever power she had used to bend reality and confuse the soldiers, it had drained her almost completely. Daniel reached into his empty bag and sighed. No food, no water, nothing to give. All he had left was his watchful eyes and his promise to protect her. She stirred, opening her glowing eyes. For a moment, fear flashed in them. Then she saw him and her small body relaxed. "You, still here?" she whispered. Daniel nodded. "I'm not leaving you." She sat up slowly, hugging her thin knees to her chest. Silence stretched between them, heavy with unspoken questions. Finally, Daniel broke it. "What are you?" His voice was calm, not cruel, but it carried weight. No child should have power like that. The girl lowered her head. For a long time, she said nothing. Then in a trembling voice, she spoke. "My people, not strong, not tall, not many weapons. We were servants, slaves." Her words cut through Daniel's chest like a blade. He had seen slaves before in captured colonies, beings broken under the boots of war. She continued, voice shaking. "The enemy. They came to our world, took my family, took all. We worked until death." Her small hands gripped her knees tighter. "I was born inside their ship. I never see my home." Daniel swallowed hard. The fire of anger lit inside him. Anger he had not felt in months. He wanted to shout, to break something, but he stayed quiet. The girl's story was not finished. "I ran," she whispered. "Escaped. I hide in tunnels and ruins. Always hungry. Always hunted. Humans never helped. Only shouted. Only pushed me away until—" Her glowing eyes lifted to his face. "You." Daniel's throat tightened. He remembered the way she had looked at him when he gave her food, like no one had ever shown her kindness before. She leaned closer. "Why? Why you give your last meal? Why protect me when you have nothing?" Daniel looked into her shining eyes. He searched for the right words. But what could he say? He wasn't a hero. He wasn't a savior. He was just a broken soldier who had been too tired to walk away. At last he answered softly. "Because I couldn't watch you die." Her lips curved into the smallest smile, a fragile, trembling smile, but real. Silence filled the tunnel again, but this time it was different. Warmer. Then she said something that made his blood run cold. "You must leave me." Daniel frowned. "What?" "They hunt me, not you," she said, her voice sad but certain. "If you stay, you die too. Better you go." Daniel stared at her, then shook his head. "Not happening." Her eyes widened. "But no." His voice was firm, unshakable. "I don't abandon those who trust me. You're not alone anymore. If they want you, they'll have to go through me first." For a long time, she just stared at him, silent, her glowing eyes searching his face for lies. Then slowly she whispered, "You different. Not like others." Daniel leaned back, letting out a tired breath. "I've seen enough death. Maybe saving one life is enough reason to keep fighting." The girl reached out with a tiny hand, hesitated, then placed it gently on his arm. Her touch was warm, almost like a spark of light in the endless dark. She whispered, "Then, I will help you too." Daniel raised an eyebrow. "Help me, how?" The girl looked around the tunnel, her glow reflecting on broken rails. "I know paths, hidden places. I hear things. I feel things." She tapped her small chest. "Inside me is something they want. Something powerful." Daniel's eyes narrowed. "That's why they're chasing you." She nodded slowly. "If they take me, they win." A cold weight settled in Daniel's stomach. This was bigger than survival. Bigger than hunger or safety. The girl wasn't just a runaway slave. She was a weapon, a secret, maybe even the last hope against the enemy. Daniel tightened his grip on the rifle. His choice had been made already, but now the cost was clearer. Protecting her meant war would never leave him. It meant being hunted until the end. But when he looked at her again, small and fragile yet shining like a star in the darkness, he knew his answer. "Then we don't let them take you," he said. The girl's lips curved into another faint smile. For the first time, hope flickered in her glowing eyes. The war above still raged. Patrols still hunted. Soldiers still marched. But in that dark tunnel under rusted steel and broken stone, something new was born. Not just survival. Not just fear, a bond. The bond between a human soldier and a small alien girl. A bond strong enough to change everything. The tunnels stretched for miles, twisting like veins beneath the dead colony. Daniel walked carefully, his rifle always in his hands, his ears sharp for every sound. The little alien girl followed close, her small steps light, her glowing eyes guiding them in the darkness like lanterns. They had no food, no water, and no clear destination. But Daniel had chosen his path to protect her. And she had promised to guide him through hidden places the enemy did not know. Together they moved forward into the unknown. For hours they traveled. The air was damp, carrying the smell of rust and rot. Rats scurried through broken pipes, their squeaks echoing. Daniel's stomach groaned with hunger, but he forced himself to keep moving. The girl, though smaller, walked without complaint. Finally, they reached a broken stairway that climbed upward. Daniel checked carefully, then led her out. They emerged into the night. The ruined city stretched wide, a graveyard of steel and stone. Towers stood like broken teeth, windows shattered, streets torn apart by war. Fires burned in the distance, their smoke crawling into the sky. Daniel took a deep breath of the cool air, though it tasted of ash. "Stay close," he whispered. The girl nodded, gripping the edge of his torn jacket. They moved through the city like shadows. Sometimes they heard engines in the sky, and Daniel pulled her into hiding until the noise faded. Other times they found the bodies of the fallen, human and alien alike. The girl never looked away, though her small face grew sadder with each one. As they crossed a shattered plaza, Daniel noticed something strange. The girl stopped, her glowing eyes narrowing. "What is it?" he whispered. She lifted a small hand, pointing toward a collapsed building. "Danger." Daniel raised his rifle, scanning the shadows. At first he saw nothing. Then a sharp metallic click echoed. His instincts screamed, "Down!" he shouted. The ground exploded. A hidden mine tore the air with fire and smoke. Daniel shielded the girl, rolling across the rubble. Dust filled his lungs, his ears rang. Out of the smoke came figures, enemy soldiers. Their armor gleamed under the burning light, their weapons raised. Daniel cursed and fired. One soldier dropped, then another. But more kept coming. The girl pressed against him, her small body shaking. "Run!" Daniel shouted. They sprinted through the plaza, lasers slashing the air behind them. Stone shattered, flames roared, sparks rained down. Daniel's rifle barked again and again, but his ammo was running low. At the edge of the plaza stood an old tower, half collapsed. They rushed inside, climbing over broken stairs and fallen beams. Dust rained from above as enemy fire followed. Halfway up, Daniel's foot slipped. The floor gave way, sending rubble crashing down. He grabbed the girl and pulled her close, pressing them against the wall. "We can't keep running," he muttered, sweat dripping from his brow. "We need a way out." The girl's glowing eyes flickered. She touched his chest with her small hand. "Trust me." Before he could answer, she closed her eyes. Her glow brightened, spilling across the broken walls like starlight. The air around them shifted, heavy and strange. Below, the soldiers entered the tower, weapons ready. But when their scanners swept the stairs, they passed right over Daniel and the girl, as if they weren't even there. Daniel's eyes widened. "You're hiding us?" The girl's face was pale with effort. "Yes, but not for long." The soldiers marched past, climbing higher, unaware. Daniel held his breath until their boots echoed away. When the glow faded, the girl collapsed against him, weak and trembling. Daniel knelt beside her. "You saved us again." She smiled faintly, her small voice shaking. "Because you saved me first." He lifted her gently, carrying her as he moved deeper into the tower. They found an old office room, its windows broken, the floor covered in dust. Daniel set her down carefully and checked the area. Safe, for now. He sat beside her, staring out at the ruined city. The fires burned brighter now, enemy ships moving in the distance. The world felt like it was dying. Yet when he looked at the girl, he felt something different. Hope. "You're stronger than you look," he said quietly. Her glowing eyes lifted to his face. "And you're kinder than you look." For the first time, Daniel chuckled. The sound felt strange, almost forgotten. The girl tilted her head. "What is your name?" Daniel blinked. He realized he had never told her. "Daniel," she repeated it softly, like tasting the sound. "Neil," he smiled faintly. "And you? Do you have a name?" Her eyes dimmed. "My people called me Lyra," Daniel nodded. Lyra. The name felt right, like a small star shining in the dark. That night, in the ruins of war, a bond grew stronger. Not soldier and alien, not protector and child, but something more. Companions. Survivors. And though danger still hunted them, Daniel knew one truth. Together, they had a chance. The journey was only beginning. The night was never silent in the ruins. Engines roared in the distance, patrols scanned the streets, and fire burned like the heartbeat of a dying world. Daniel stood at the broken window of the tower, watching the lights of enemy ships sweep across the horizon. His rifle felt heavy in his hands, his body weak from hunger, but his mind was sharp. Behind him, Lyra slept curled on the dusty floor, her glow faint but steady. She looked so small, so fragile. Yet Daniel knew better now. Inside that little body burned a power far greater than any weapon he had carried. But that power came with a price. Every time she used it, she weakened. And the enemy wanted her badly enough to tear the world apart. Daniel's jaw tightened. They couldn't run forever. Sooner or later, the enemy would corner them. And when that happened, he would be ready to fight. The sound of boots on rubble cut through the night. Daniel spun, rifle raised. Lyra jolted awake, her glowing eyes wide. From below, voices shouted in a language Daniel knew too well. The enemy had found them. "Go," Daniel whispered, pulling her to her feet. "We need to move." But before they could reach the stairway, the building shook with an explosion. Dust rained from the ceiling. The enemy had sealed the exits. They were trapped. Daniel's heart pounded. He pushed Lyra behind him as soldiers poured into the lower floors. The sound of metal boots echoed, climbing closer. "This is it," Daniel muttered. He checked his rifle. Only a few rounds left. Not enough. Never enough. Lyra tugged at his sleeve, her voice trembling. "You cannot fight them all. They too many." Daniel looked down at her, his face hard but calm. "Then I'll make sure they never reach you." Her glowing eyes filled with fear. "No, if you die, I alone again." He knelt, resting one hand on her small shoulder. "Lyra, listen to me. I gave you my last meal. I gave you my promise. If this is where I fall, you keep running. You survive, because you're worth more than me." Tears shimmered in her glowing eyes. She shook her head fiercely. "No, not alone. Not again." The soldiers' voices grew louder, closer. The stairway creaked with their boots. Daniel rose, lifting his rifle. His muscles ached, but his spirit burned. He would not give up, not here, not while she lived. Then Lyra stepped forward. Her small body glowed brighter, the light spilling across the broken walls. Daniel turned sharply. "Lyra, no!" She looked back at him, her eyes shining like stars. "You gave me life. Now I give you strength." Before he could stop her, she raised her tiny hands. The glow spread brighter and brighter until the whole tower shone with light. The soldiers stormed into the room, weapons raised, but froze, because Lyra was no longer just a small girl. She was a star burning in human form. The air shook with her power. The ground trembled. The soldiers shouted, firing wildly, but their bullets melted in the light before reaching her. One by one, they dropped their weapons, blinded and broken by the force. Daniel shielded his eyes, his heart torn between awe and fear. He shouted over the roar of energy. "Lyra, stop, you'll burn yourself out." She turned her face toward him, her smile soft and heartbreaking. "Better I burn than they win." The light exploded outward. The tower shook violently, windows shattering, walls crumbling. The enemy soldiers screamed as the blast swept through, wiping them away in a storm of pure energy. Then silence. Smoke curled through the broken tower. Ash floated in the air like snow, and Lyra collapsed. Daniel rushed forward, dropping his rifle, catching her before she hit the ground. Her glow was dim, almost gone. Her small chest rose and fell weakly. "No, no, no," Daniel's voice cracked. "Stay with me, Lyra. Don't you dare leave me now." Her eyes fluttered open, faint light shining inside them. Still here. Daniel pulled her close, his chest heavy with relief. He whispered, "You should have saved your strength." She smiled faintly. "And let them kill you?" "No." He laughed bitterly, tears stinging his eyes. "You stubborn little star." Outside, the city was quiet for the first time in days. The patrol had been destroyed. The enemy would send more, but not tonight. Tonight they had survived. Daniel looked down at the girl in his arms. She was weak, yes, but she was alive. And he knew now, more than ever, that she was worth every fight, every sacrifice. He pressed his forehead gently against hers. "You're not alone anymore. Not while I breathe." Her lips curved into a small, tired smile. "And you, not alone either." The ruins still burned. The war still raged. But in that broken tower, something stronger than fear had risen. Hope. The final stand was not the end. It was only the beginning. The tower was broken, its walls cracked and blackened by fire. Smoke drifted into the sky like a fading memory of the battle. The streets below were quiet now. No soldiers marched. No engines roared. The enemy patrol had been destroyed. Inside the ruins, Daniel sat on the floor, his back against a broken beam. In his arms lay Lyra, the little alien girl who had burned brighter than any weapon. Her glow was faint like a dying ember. Daniel brushed dust from her silver hair. His voice was low but steady. "You saved me again. You saved us both." Her eyes opened slightly, soft light flickering inside them. "You gave me food. You gave me hope. This is what I give back." Daniel shook his head. "Not like this. You almost burned yourself away." Her small hand moved weakly, pressing against his chest. "But you still live." "That is enough." Daniel closed his eyes, pain heavy in his heart. He was a soldier. He had seen comrades fall, seen whole worlds die, but nothing had struck him like this tiny alien child, fighting with everything she had just to keep him alive. When he opened his eyes, he made himself a promise. "Never again. I won't let them touch you. I won't let you fight alone. If they come for you, they'll face me first." Lyra smiled faintly. "And if they come for you, they face me too." The bond between them was no longer fragile. It was unbreakable. But Daniel knew their peace would not last. The enemy had seen her power. They would come back, stronger, smarter, and when they did, they would not stop until they had her. He needed to move, to find safety, to keep her alive long enough to heal. Slowly, carefully, he lifted her onto his back. She was so light, like carrying a bundle of feathers. Her head rested against his shoulder, her glow warm against his skin. The ruined street stretched before him. Fires burned low, shadows long. Daniel walked through them like a ghost, silent, steady. His boots echoed softly, but his heart beat louder. Each step carried him deeper into the unknown. But for the first time, he did not feel lost. He had a purpose now. Not just survival, not just revenge, something greater. As they passed through the ruins, Lyra stirred. "Daniel," she whispered. "Yes?" he asked, keeping his eyes on the shadows. "Why, you care so much?" He paused, then answered quietly. "Because when I gave you my last meal, I realized something. In this war, we've all been fighting to live one more day. But living means nothing without meaning. Saving you, that gave my life meaning." Her glowing eyes blinked, soft tears shining. "Then I will give you meaning, too." They kept moving, slipping through alleys and broken streets. Daniel's body was weak, but his will carried him forward. He found a half-buried shelter beneath an old market. The roof sagged, but it was hidden. Safe for now. Inside, he set Lyra down gently. She curled up on a pile of cloth, her glow faint but steady. Daniel sat beside her, rifle in his lap, eyes scanning the darkness. Sleep pulled at him, but he fought it. The enemy would come again. They always did. Still, for the first time in months, he let himself feel something he had forgotten. Hope. Not because the war was ending. Not because he believed victory was near, but because of her, Lyra, the last of her kind. The little alien who smiled at him even after hunger, fear, and pain. The one who had turned a soldier's broken heart into something alive again. Daniel knew their journey was far from over. Ahead lay more battles, more hunts, more nights of fear. But he also knew this. As long as they stayed together, they had a chance. He whispered softly, almost like a prayer, "You're not alone anymore." And in her sleep, Lyra smiled. Morning came slowly. The fires burned lower, the sky painted with smoke and faint light. Daniel rose, stretching sore muscles, and checked his rifle. Still too few bullets, too little strength, but enough to fight another day. He looked at Lyra, still asleep, her glow returning bit by bit. She was small, yes, fragile, but she was also powerful. More powerful than either of them fully understood, and the enemy knew it. Daniel's eyes hardened. He could almost feel their presence on the horizon. Ships gathering, soldiers preparing. They would not stop. Not until they had her. But they would have to go through him first. He knelt beside her and whispered, "Time to move soon, little star. The world won't wait." Her eyes fluttered open, glowing softly. Then we moved together. Daniel smiled faintly. Together. The war still raged. The galaxy still burned, but in the ashes of one ruined city, a soldier and a small alien child had found something the enemy could never destroy. Hope. And that hope would become a fire strong enough to change the war, strong enough to change everything. This was not the end of their story, it was only the beginning.